Welcome to You, Me, Empathy. Thank you for listening. We would like to remind you that this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only, and is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Known as just a silly boy with a feely heart. Please consider supporting the show. Check us out on Patreon or simply leave a review on iTunes. Here's your host and creator of the show, Known Wells.
Greetings, feely humans. Welcome to You, Me, Empathy. My name is Known Wells, and this is episode 34. On episode 34, I chat with my friend Hadas about therapy, validation, and self-awareness. We explore things like the importance of context and audience when we're expressing our true selves, the myth of authority, insecurity as a poisonous thing, how to do therapy right, the Herman brain dominance instrument, validating our feelings, accepting our feelings, making other people feel heard, the awkwardness of small talk, the need for distracting ourselves from reality in moments, letting go of being right, and just so much more. So it's a great talk. It's a wide-ranging talk with my friend Hadas, and I hope you enjoy it. Before we get into the episode, this is the part of the intro where I ask you to please leave You, Me, Empathy a rating and review in Apple Podcasts. It helps out the show. It's a free way to help out the show, and I would be very grateful if you did that. And any new ones pop up, I'll read them on the show, and I'll say your name on this very podcast. Wouldn't that be swell? Yes. Yes, it would. Also, You, Me, Empathy is on Patreon, patreon.com/YouMeEmpathy. It's a way to support the show on an ongoing basis. You can support the show for as little as $1 per month. And it's just a way to, support the show. So those are two ways you can support the show. I appreciate it. Keep up. I appreciate you listening, and I appreciate when you guys reach out to me and let me know that the show impacted you in some way, or you appreciated certain aspects of it. I want feedback. I want criticism. I want to engage. So I appreciate you guys listening, and I'll stop blathering. So here it is, episode 34. On therapy, validation, and self-awareness with my friend Hadas.
You and me. Empathy. La la la, la 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 la. You, me, empathy, yeah, la la la.
Welcome to You, Me, Empathy, a podcast about exploring the struggles we face in our day-to-day lives as humans trying to get by on this wondrous and overwhelming pale blue dot. The intent of You, Me, Empathy is to talk openly, without judgment, about our neuroses, our mental illnesses, our shared anxieties and worries, to create a dialogue that is vulnerable and deeply human and empathetic, and to share that dialogue with others to inspire emotional and cognitive collaboration and insight so we can, hand in hand, break down the stigma that make us feel shame and guilt for struggling, for feeling our feelings, for being human. You, Me, Empathy is a safe, friendly space designed to inspire the beauty in each of us. Today I am thrilled to be exploring therapy and a whole host of other topics. Therapy is close to my heart, my feely heart, with pop culture nerd, fellow podcaster, and self-awareness seeker, Hadas Ben-Sur. Hello, Hadas.
Hi, what a cool list of titles. I feel like Daenerys Targaryen.
Yes, I should have added on a few more there related to your lineage and
Protector of the common room.
Yes. Oh, that would have been so much better.
I have to admit that I've actually written my own common room. We all sat and thought okay, what would ours be? And I think one of mine was queen of, can I give you some unsolicited advice? Because I tend to do that a lot.
I like it.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, she does have a lot of names. That is for sure. Well, Hadas, thanks for being on You Me Empathy with me.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for doing this show. I think it's so cool.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. You're very welcome. Before we get into, we're going to talk about therapy today and mindfulness and self-awareness and validation. Before we get into all that good stuff, we always start the show with a check-in. How are you doing today? How's your week been?
My week. So it's a little bit of a roller coaster, starting in the scary bits and like ending in a very calm part.
Okay.
Don't know where it's calm on the roller coaster, but beginning of the week I had this nightmare, and so it had been on my mind for a bit, and we'll definitely touch on this in what we talk about, because the nightmare was one of the reasons that I went to therapy. Like, it's one of the original reasons that I went to therapy. And then I got a job that I had been hoping for. So, really great, thrilling part of the roller coaster.
Okay.
And today I'm just like really, really chill, because I feel like there's less stress. Like, I have this job and I start next week, and the only pressure on me is to, do my best. I'm in. So now I just gotta follow through.
Yeah, and you will.
Thanks.
That's well, sorry to hear about the nightmare, and we could talk about that later, but what is the job, can you say?
Yeah, so I'm working. For years I've been working in operations and social media. The story is that I started Common Room as like a hobby, and then people hired me to do social media and content kind of roles, which is really exciting. And operations kinds of things. And now I really want to go into tech. I really want to work on what's called product. So it's like project management, but for tech things, for a website, for an app, etc.
Sure.
And I got a job to be a product analyst at. So it's very, very cool, and especially cool that the company does theater, because that's really fun.
I love theater. Theater is very close to my heart. Well, that's exciting. Cool. New job. And you start next week, you said?
Yes, I start next week.
Well, congratulations. I love the feel of a new job, like right before a new job. It's all very exciting, and
yeah, it feels like school.
Yeah.
I love school, so it feels great.
I said yes, but I mean no. Because I wasn't I didn't love school. I did okay in school, but I felt very lonely in school.
Oh, okay. That's where people like misunderstand me. I loved school because my brothers are 10 and 12 years older. So school is the place where I had so many friends my age. And there was something to do, and we were all there for like most of our lives, because that's most of your year. And so that's why I loved school. I like to learn also, but I didn't like to study, and my grades weren't incredible.
Yeah.
Like, I loved being in class, but I hated doing homework. So I liked school in like the weird way of like social, like being social,
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes sense, especially with the older brothers. Totally makes sense. Well, I'm excited to hear more about your new job as it progresses. As far as my check-in this week, a couple of things. I've had a few sort of low weeks, and this week I decided to. I've been taking. The listeners know I've been taking this sort of. It's called It's a medical food. It's basically it's Deplin. It's called Deplin, and it's a sort of like it's like a B supplement, essentially. It's like a really high dose of B supplement, because I was sort of really low on it, and my psychiatrist recommended it. And I've been taking that for the past 2.5 months or so, but I'm still sort of struggling with my depression, and so As I mentioned in a previous episode, like it's hard sometimes to make the decision to call your psychiatrist or even call your therapist and get in there. So
Hmm.
I finally did that yesterday and called and set up an appointment to go back
Good.
and maybe sort of try something in addition to or in replacement of. So I wanted to mention that and just give the listeners an update on that. But also, I I'm also sort of riding this high of like getting a bunch of Patreon supporters over the
Nice.
past week or two. I've gotten like 6 new Patreon supporters over the last like week, which I just couldn't be happier with it, and I'm just so excited and so thankful, and it just warms my heart to know that people are sort of engaging with this stuff and finding
Hmm.
meaning in it. So just very excited and happy about that.
It's also really nice. I don't know if people who aren't podcasters understand. Like, it's very rare for people to reach out and talk to us. Like, and think about yourself. Like, you listen to a podcast and you're done, right? Like,
Sure.
it's not super easy to click up and talk to the podcaster, or even think that they want to hear from you because
Sure.
you know. So it's so nice that people reach out and Patreon, become supporters is really, really nice. I'm really happy for you.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. No, I want really this Yumi empathy thing to be, to really be this warm, supportive community. And I have like a Facebook community for it, over on Facebook. And that's
Mhm.
growing and great. And the people in there are just so supportive and stuff. And I just want to build that and eventually like take over the world in that, and not Yumi empathy take over the world, but that sort of ethos and sort of that heartfelt support and empathy to take over the world,
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, so let's get into your story, Hadas. I
Sure.
am curious, before we get into your sort of origin and where you started with therapy, I'm curious about, I kind of always try to get to this information, and my guess is what was your childhood like? I know that's a big question. So maybe call out some seminal moments of your childhood that you think maybe speaks to who you are today and kind of shape who you are today.
Okay, this may sound a little soap opera-y, but I'll start it here. When my parents had a really hard time having children. They got married very young. They're much older, as you could probably tell, because my brothers are much older than me. They got married in 1967, and they had their first kid 7 years later. Then they had my second brother, and they were told, like, nope, I don't think you can have any more children. 10 years later, my mother was pregnant with me, but at the same time, her younger brother, her only brother in a family of 5 daughters and one son, was dying from cancer. And so the family was crushed. But when I was born, my mother tells me, I always ask my mother, as a late in life child, weren't you like, with the babies again? Like, I have to do this all over. And she's like, no, Hadas, really? You were such an easy baby, and you were such a happy baby, and you made me happy because I was so sad. And the family was so sad, and they were so happy to have this distraction in you.
Aw,
And so I know it's really nice.
that's sweet.
Really nice to hear that. Very sweet. And I think that's partly why I was very spoiled. Forget the fact that I was the only girl and the baby. I also came at a time where like they needed a cute thing around.
Yeah. How old were they when they had you?
My mother was 40 and my father was like 42, something
Okay.
like that. In today's age, that's normal.
Sure.
But for them in their lives and in that time, it was different. It was, I don't think any of my aunts had kids. No, I'm the middle child of the entire family. My cousins are either 6 years older or younger than me. So yeah. So I feel like they always tell me like you were like the little queen, like you got whatever you wanted. My brothers are always like, you really got everything you wanted. Like we didn't get the same things you did when we were little. I recognize that I'm this is like a thing that I think about on a regular basis. Like I just got this job, right? And I'm so, 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 so grateful. I recognize that I'm lucky. You know, I'm religious, so I might say blessed, even though that's so irritating. But
no, I mean, if it works for you, that's great.
Yeah. I recognize that not everyone gets certain things. And so I think my childhood was really happy and great and very childlike in that I was incredibly naive. I recognized years later that I was bullied, but I just didn't notice it. Like I didn't realize that people were making fun of me, which is a blessing. It's like so lucky not to realize that, not to have that effect. My brothers didn't have that.
Yeah.
My brothers knew that they were bullied and they felt horrible.
Sure.
So I have to, like, you know, looking back, sometimes I cringe. Sometimes I think like, man, I was pretty awkward. And because I wasn't self-aware, I was weird. But I'm so happy that I didn't know I was weird. And happy that I was just myself and happy.
Mm-hmm. And was that sort of part sort of your personality and part just, you know, the sort of environment you were in, it sounded like is very supportive and warm and allowed you to sort of be whatever you wanted to be?
It's interesting because I think of my brothers and I, and we're also different in the way we take things. I think it might be a personality for me. I think I didn't do anything to create this personality. Like I'm not tooting my own horn. I just think I'm lucky that sometimes it really hurt, you know, but most of the time I could think, but I know that I'm nice. So why should I care what not nice people think or do to me, right? So while my oldest brother would want like, you know, revenge or, you know, would want to show them or like would feel angry and upset and really hurt by it and really defensive about it. My middle brother would feel hurt, but also like ignore it. I think it's very much a personality thing.
Were you gleaning any sort of lessons from your parents during that time? Like, because it's got to be hard to sort of get some sort of flack from sort of a kid on the playground and feel like, oh, well, he's not being nice and I'm nice and why would I care? Like that's a sort of elevated place, you know, like I can imagine. I mean, I certainly couldn't have gone there as a child. As a child, I would have been, you know, I'd probably ran away or something.
Yeah.
Did you get some of that role modeling with your parents, or do you think it just kind of all internal?
This is so weird, but I can't remember conversations. I remember one time there was this girl who didn't like me. And at one point I was close friends with another girl who she wanted to become her best friend. And so she tried to like push me away, you know, that she could have her to herself. That was something that happened a lot as I was growing up, that like there's a lot of ownership over friends and you couldn't have, you know, too many, or like, you know, like people wanted their friend to be their friend and not everyone else's friend. Yeah,
there's a pride thing.
I don't know what it was. And we're so young, like where are we getting this from?
Yeah.
But it was fourth grade and she and the other girl came to my house and I thought they came to play. But then the next day they told everyone like, you know, she has this in her room and like nothing was weird. But they just the tone and like the sharing of what they saw in my room that I invited them to, that's like mine. I knew something was off. I don't think I was very hurt, but I could tell that it wasn't good. Like I could tell like she's saying this because she wants to hurt me. Like even though objectively it's not hurtful. Yeah, I have this and that in my room. But then one day it got physical and she punched me in the stomach. And I told my mother that was like, enough is enough. Like I can't have someone touch me. That's not cool.
Yeah.
And my mother called her mother and her mother made her apologize. But things kept going on in school, and I wrote to the teacher. I remember this. I just told my mother this like a few weeks ago. She doesn't remember it, but the teacher had a suggestion box where this was third grade actually. You could put a note in the suggestion box and anonymously or like secretly just to the teacher, and she'll talk to you about it if you have any questions or whatever. So I told her, these girls aren't treating me well. I don't feel good about it. And she spoke to me and she said, Hadas, I got your note, the teacher. What would you like me to do about it? And I'm thinking right now as an adult, like, what was she expecting from me?
Yeah.
What would I know? What would I say? I totally ignored your question. Your question is, did my parents help or give any tips?
Yeah.
I think part of what you said was maybe I just felt so comfortable and like loved, and that I was so so accepted that by the time maybe that's why it was so easy to like roll off my back, because I just felt secure.
Mm-hmm. What did you feel protected?
I can't think of anything
Was
explicit.
it a pretty protected environment, childhood? Were your parents pretty protective?
Yes and no, because yes, I didn't go out to do all sorts of things because they would have to drive me and stuff, and they didn't always want to. And it depends with who. So they didn't always like let me go wherever I wanted. And there wasn't always the opportunity for that. There wasn't always someone around to drive me.
Yeah. Did you grow up in New York?
I did. I grew up in Brooklyn.
Okay.
But the other side of that is when it came to like the TV or computers, they had no idea what was going on. So wasn't very I don't think they knew what I was up to all the time.
Yeah, you had free reign. That makes sense. I mean, they're a little older. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So fast forward a little bit. Let's what inspired you to get into therapy? Was there an event? Were you struggling with something? Were you trying to process something?
So there were two big things, and they have to do with family. One, my parents are much older. So this was like a few years ago. I want to say 4 years ago. That's when I first decided.
Mm-hmm.
My parents are a lot older. And I had a big fear of them dying. Not for any like specific reason, just the fact that I would be alone. That's what I was fearing. If my parents die, no one in the world exists that loves me in that way. My brothers and I, my brothers are like my third and fourth parents. We're like longtime friends, but we're not like siblings that I've seen other people have. We don't have that kind of relationship that I see other people whose siblings are closer in age have.
Sure.
We don't have that. So even, people would say like, but you have two brothers. No, they don't. We don't have that with each other. So that was the big fear. And I wanted to learn how to overcome it and understand it, or whatever it was. I wanted to figure it out. The other thing was that I don't get along with one of the members of my family. And I'm not going to get into like too much detail with that because it's very personal, but I really don't get along with one member of my family, and I've cut them out. Because it's really negatively affects me. It makes me very anxious. It makes me, this person was like verbally, what's the word?
Abusive?
I think that's a very strong word, but it was very, very aggressive.
Uh-huh.
I don't want to say abusive. I want to say aggressive. And so I've cut them out. And other members of the family really don't like it. I'm not really happy with it either. I don't like doing that. But it makes me feel safer and stronger and happier.
Yeah,
and
that's good. Those are good boundaries.
Yeah, it's hard for me. Sometimes I feel cruel. Like while
Yeah.
I know that it's good, I feel cruel, and I wanted to talk to the therapist about this and say like, look, I need someone to be objective and tell me you're really going overboard, or no, do what you have to do, or explain to me so that I can help you make that decision on your own. And so those were the two main reasons I went. I also had started Common Room at the time and was having a really hard time being a leader, and wanted to get some confidence. So those were the three main things. And every once in a while, when I felt like a real dip in my confidence, or just difficulty being myself, I would go back to her.
Yeah. What do you mentioned the first reason being your parents getting older and you losing your parents and not having that type of unconditional love from anyone else. Like where do you suppose that comes from? Because obviously, thinking about your parents, but is there, are you, are you having some relational troubles elsewhere? Like what's going on there?
That's a great question. I think it's a blessing and like a curse, kind of double-sided thing, in that I'm very genuine. I'm very comfortable being myself, which means that sometimes I'm myself in the wrong situation. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to say that I'm grossly filterless, but I'm not super polished. And so and now I've grown up, so I am self-aware, no longer naive. And so it's very painful to realize when people are, uncomfortable around you, or you can be too much for people. So I think it was around the time when I was going to college and all of my high school friends are gone. We've all, we're all in different places. And now there's a whole, you have to start making friends again. I think maybe that was the tipping point that made me think like, ooh, I need to figure out like who I am and how to act and find the right people.
What were you doing to use your words, make people feel uncomfortable?
My friends used to call me grandma, and I'm very much like, my mother would always like tell me like, stop mothering your friends. So I think I was definitely one of those like overbearing like mom friends of like, why are you buying that? Like you're in debt. Like,
I see.
I'm that.
Yeah.
Very, very annoying like that. And I did that for a very long time, and I'm very loud and aggressive, and so that
Sure.
I'm sure I can come off as a little bit of a know-it-all. And I'm a ham. I'm such a ham. I like to take all the attention, like make corny jokes, and so I think it's just a lot of that combined. It's a little weird.
But that's who you are, right? I mean,
yeah, but
so,
there can be, like a balance.
yeah, I do struggle with this myself. I'm just going to relate real quick. I don't like the idea of someone telling me I shouldn't be who I am. And who I am is someone who, wears his heart on his sleeve, who's like deeply silly and thinks, most things in life are pretty absurd. And I can be very crass as well. And, I've had troubles in the past where I've sort of forgotten the context. And I think that that's something I'm constantly reminding myself, is the context and the audience that I'm speaking to or just in vicinity of, is I need to remember context and audience and realize that, okay, Known, even though you are this person and you have these punk rock anarchic roots, you also need to realize that Aunt Hoozle doesn't like, you to say cunt or whatever. Like, these are the things that I need to still work on. So I guess I'm relating to you and saying I struggle with it as well.
So, you just touched on something that reminded me. I think the core maybe is that my parents, um, it's not like, I don't know how to explain this, but I could talk to them very freely. Like, to explain, I'm an observant Jew, so every Friday night we have Shabbat dinner, and it's a family dinner, and everyone's there. So the immediate family. So every Friday night for my whole life, everything that we talk about, whatever we talk about, like everyone could talk about anything they wanted, and so sometimes there would be really frank, open discussions of, Hadas, I don't like the way you're behaving, or to my father, like this thing that you did, or or like your opinion on that is wrong, or we could be really open. And so the kind of like respect framework and like authority was not the same as other households. And so maybe, and paired with the fact that I was very spoiled, maybe that's why I just don't get authority. I
Yeah.
don't believe in authority for authority, like respecting authority just because they're an authority. Like, I think every human needs to earn that. And that doesn't mean that I disrespect people. It just means that I'm very comfortable questioning. If the CEO says we're doing it this way, I'm going to say why if this way is better. I'm not afraid because it's the CEO. You know what I'm saying? So that always, not everyone likes that.
No, I like that. I will say that we should question. Like, I always hate the idea that, you have a parent. I'm not a parent, but you hear parents, and it's been done to me, and I've heard it in people I know, is the child asks a question and the parent just says, because I said so.
Yeah, that does not work with me.
It shouldn't work, right? Like, that's not allowing for a space of curiosity and learning and sort of understanding. That's just shutting down.
Sure. If we want to get into like the weeds of that, of course there are certain things when like a kid is 5, you're not going to explain to them like all the things, but when we're older and we're able to think and understand things more, and of course there's a way that you do it. Like, I'm not going to be like, well, that's dumb. Of course I'm not going to talk like that. But that's a big thing in my life at work, is that I'm the type of person who asks questions that people see them as challenges. So I could say like, Noan, why do you do your podcast only 4 times a month? You should do it 12 times a month. And because you'll understand me, you wouldn't be like, Hadas, no one asked you, this is my show. You would talk to me about it.
Sure.
And that's what I respect. That's when I can tell someone is secure, when they're able to take my questions at face value and not have to respond to me in a defensive way.
Yeah. Well, that's what it's really about is insecurity.
Oh, that's my whole thing. That's my like thesis of the world, is that insecurity is the most poisonous thing in the world. And it's the cause for every destructive thing.
Yeah, it causes us to not believe ourselves, and then, feel, defensive, and we're just rewriting narratives in our head about, what's right and wrong, and it's terrible. Yeah. So about 4 years ago, you start therapy. Tell me about those first initial experiences. How did you find a therapist? Let's start there.
Okay. So I have a friend who was studying to be a mental health counselor.
Great.
And I had been using her in the wrong way for a while.
Okay.
And then I said to her, okay, I think it's time I find someone, and this time I'm serious. Help me. What's my first step? So she told me, okay, go to, I think it was like psychologytoday.com or whatever, and you enter a zip code and you can find people, a list of people. And she told me specifically, I told her, I don't want to talk at someone. I could talk to the wall. I'm very comfortable talking to myself out loud because I was like almost an only child. I played by myself for a long time. So I don't need that. I need someone to talk to me. I need someone to help me work through things. So she told me like, avoid these terms, look for these terms. And then I found a woman who had a last name that was like common in my community. So I thought, okay, so I don't have to explain to her like cultural things. So that would be nice. and she didn't live too far. And so I met with her, and she was wonderful. She made me feel really heard, and it was like we hit it off. And my friend was saying, that's pretty rare. Some people have to keep looking until they find someone they mesh with.
Totally.
And so that worked out. I really felt comfortable. I'm also known, I don't know if you noticed, like I'm pretty comfortable talking to people.
Yeah.
But I equally felt that she was respectful, and that I would get something out of it.
That's great.
Yeah. So that's how I found her. I think the first few sessions, when it's just like a lot of intake and like understanding who I am, was a little scary, because one of those big fears that I've had was just being I don't want to say, I can't find the word, but it's like being appropriate, being acceptable, and not being awkward or rude or weird. And so I was trying very hard to see if she thought that I was normal, and normal in the sense like that validated that like my thoughts were valid, and that I don't have this crazy, that my thoughts were irrational, like my opinions were irrational. And so that's how I felt in those first few sessions of like, am I thinking straight? And can I be objective? Am I self-aware? Those kinds of things.
What were you talking about in those first couple of sessions? Like, what did you sort of lay out, like what you're trying to achieve?
Yeah. So we, straight up, I mentioned, the goals.
Yeah.
Which we talked about, the family thing, and then the common room thing.
Which I'm just going to call out is probably not that's probably not the experience that most people have going in with like specific goals. I mean, I know I certainly did not, but good for you. That's great.
Do you know what HBDI is?
I do not. What is that?
Okay, I'm gonna look on my phone so I'm not making noise, but it's this for what they stand for, but it's this kind of like, I want to say, I don't know if aptitude is the right word, but it's this test that kind of tells you what you how you tend to act, and then kind of helps you understand what career would suit you based on the way you act, not based on your skills.
Okay.
So it's called a HBDI. Where are you? So I'm fast forwarding to this because I met with a coach this past year, a like career coach, a life coach. I don't know what you call them. Because I was having trouble at work and I wanted some guidance. And she did this test for me, and she was telling me that the type that I was, she's like, yeah, so these 3 types would never come with a notebook and pen and expect notes like you are. That's very specifically this type. Like, and this type usually asks for homework. And I was like, man, you took the words right out of my mouth. Like, I wanted homework. Like, I want to know, okay, what do we do?
Yeah. You want action. You want bullet points.
Yeah. I know what I'm capable of, so I'm coming to you, the professional. I need you to give me some of that knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
So what did we talk about? We talked about some situations I was having in common room, difficulties leading and just relationships with people, and so very specific instances of like he said, she said kind of things. And so there, I really wanted to know, like, did I say it wrong? Did I do it wrong? How could I have done it better? How do I understand the person better? How do I communicate better? Those were the first few things, because I was incredibly stressed out at that point about common room.
Yeah. Yeah. And what did you learn? Like, what did the therapist take you did she explore your childhood at all? What did you learn? So that's one question. And then the follow-up would be, what did you learn about yourself during those first few experiences, or few weeks, I guess?
Yeah. So what was wonderful was that, like the double-edged sword, like I wanted stuff, but she kept throwing it back at me, which is great because I think like most of the time when people want advice, right, they want to hear that they're right. They don't really want advice.
Sure.
And I really wanted advice, but she made me give it to myself. So she made me like think out loud. So what she did that was great was every time I had an opinion, she would force me to back it up. So if I would say, I feel like I'm really overbearing, she would make me explain why, and then I would come to the conclusion of whether I was or not. A lot of the times when I would say things like I told you about, like how I thought I was weird when I was younger, and maybe that's why it's hard to make friends, or like maybe I'm, just too open. Maybe that's just not acceptable. She would constantly push back and ask me, like, why do you think that? Where are you getting that from? Is that just you being insecure? Or did someone tell you, like, Hadas, this kind of thing, I can't stand it anymore? And did like 10 people tell you that? She never really asked me like about childhood, but it would come up. If I would say I'm struggling with something with my mother, then other examples would pop up and we talk about that. But she never prompted a like, tell me your background kind of thing.
Sure. And what, as you were talking through these things and having to come up with examples, for example, being overbearing, were you always able to come up with examples?
I have to think about that. I think often, yes. I can definitely count, like, on one hand, a few instances where she'd ask me something and I'd be stumped,
Yeah.
I wouldn't remember or wouldn't know how to answer it. Like I'd have to digest it later. But often I remember what's up because I would obsess about it, like I would constantly think. That's another thing on Shabbat, Friday to Saturday night, I can't use tech. So it's a very restful time. But if I'm upset about something, then all I do for those 25 hours is think about it. And so I go through and that can be very, very difficult if I'm unhappy and I don't have a distraction. So I just think about it and think about it and think about it and go over and over and over. And because we live in a digital world, we also have the records. So we have like the full conversation where I can look through the text and be like, I used that word, or, I didn't put an emoji there, or whatever it was. So I think I was capable of producing examples because I would obsess about situations. Got it.
Yeah. You are painting a picture of the type of person you are, and that makes sense to me. You mentioned that validation has been sort of a big part of your therapy journey and mental health journey. In what ways have you been validated or have struggled with validation?
So my parents are very funny people. I think one of the things that has been incredibly hard to go through is understanding, I had it and it just escaped. But they tend to do this thing where, here it is, that I never feel like I'm allowed to complain. If I'm upset about anything, if I'm like, I didn't get this job and I really, really wanted it and I really needed it and whatever, they would come back at me with, well, you live in our house, you don't have to pay rent. You have food on the table. They would list all the good things in my life to like explain to me, like, don't complain about that.
I see.
Before saying, and literally this phrase would have calmed me down immediately, saying, I understand. That's so upsetting, but you know what, Hadas? And then the list would be so much better and totally fine. But they never say that. And they always try to fix. And I'm very much like that. That's something I have to learn myself, is not to fix, to understand when a friend like actually wants me to fix and when a friend just wants me to listen and validate. Um, so I try to tell them, like, it would really, like, right now you're making me very upset, and it would help me so much more if you just said, Hadas, I understand. And then if you need to fix, to fix, but they don't understand what I'm saying. So they'll say like, oh, so you just want me to shut up? You just want to talk and you don't want me to say anything?
Right.
So okay, now I know I can't fix this. So now I just have to understand in my head, this is how they're going to react. So if you decided to come to them with whatever it is, know that this is what you're going to get. And now at this point, at 31, I'm able to deal with it 95% of the time. It doesn't affect me. There was a time where, oh man, did it like ruin my day,
Mm-hmm.
But understanding just this term validation and how it helps me and how it helps me with other people, it was such a big thing, also validating myself. Like when I feel bad about something, I have, even if I'm not saying it to anyone, even if it's just in my brain, to say to myself, like, yes, you are an incredibly lucky person. You are so insanely privileged. You recognize it, but yes, it's upsetting that you have the flu. Like, I'm allowed to be upset. I'm allowed to complain. And that was so helpful.
That's great. Yeah, if we don't accept the reality of our emotions or our feelings or what we're experiencing physically, then, how are we going to accept really anything that comes after that? We have to understand that we experience stuff and that stuff is valid. Because if we don't, then there's no really beyond that. There's no really understanding that, then you're doomed. I find an important, validation for me has been, my sort of validation journey has really been about that, is about accepting that I am feeling sad or melancholy, and that is an okay thing and a valid thing. And then also the sort of converse of that is, validating others and their emotions and allowing myself to say, I hear you and I understand, like you wanted from your parents. Like those are important, really important, just relational tools. Like you mentioned how, as it pertains to, I forgot the words you said, but these are tools that help with any relationship, really. Like we need to, oh no, I know what you were saying. You were saying like, you want to go in and fix, right? You want to go in and help and fix or whatever. But sometimes that's not what the person needs. And being aware of those things and staying back a little bit when, you sense that they need that is an important relational sort of observation as well.
Yeah, I think that has helped me communicate better, because validating, saying the words I understand, doesn't mean that you agree with the person, but it makes them feel good. It makes them feel heard. So you can actually say like, no, and I understand what you're feeling. I don't think you're going about it the right way. And I think you would take it well.
How dare you?
Podcast over. But it's like a secret trick of being nice, I think.
It's important. I think it's a really important one, and I think we all should sort of be taking notes right now, because I think that's what life is about, is sort of having these tools to better relate to one another. What about so this sort of is a good segue into self-awareness. Like I've been reading this book. I keep saying this on the podcast that I've been reading this book for like months and months and months, but it's true. I've just been very slowly reading it. But
okay.
It's this book called The Body Keeps the Score. by Bessel van der Kolk, and it's an amazing book about how we hold trauma in our bodies. And he's just this guy who's done a bunch of studies on PTSD and childhood trauma and things like that. And earlier this week, I came upon some words in one of the later chapters. I'm almost done.
Mm-hmm.
And he said the two keys to, let's see if I can remember them. The two keys to therapy are, one, take notice, and two, I'm going to look it up real quick because I forget. One, take notice, and two, what happens next. So the first being, notice that we are experiencing our thing and take note of it. Be aware of it, understand it, try to understand it. Say, hey, like, where's this coming from? Was there a specific incident? These types of questions we should sort of get used to doing. And then the second is, what comes next? Okay, that means, how are we going to deal with it? Is it going to ruin our day? Is it like, how are we going to learn about it? Are we going to maybe sort of process it a little differently next time? Like, these are all things that we need to learn, and therapy definitely helps us do that.
Cool.
Yeah. So self-awareness, what have you learned about self-awareness? How has your sort of self-awareness journey grown through your experience with therapy?
So, this is a little weird. When I finished high school, I went to Israel for the year. A lot of people do that. It's usually like for religious studies. I went to school where we had so much free time, which is atypical. So we would just hang out a lot. Like, we'd go to the movies. We would we all learned how to crochet. It was just so random. we would just spend a lot of time with each other rather than in class. So a lot of socialization. It's also the first time and you're living in Israel, right? So
Yeah.
You're away from your parents. First time I ever spent more than like a few days away from my parents and on a completely different continent. And was around a lot of girls and lived with other people. And throughout that year, I realized what kind of person I was. I learned so much about myself. I learned how to live with others and how others react to me, and so many different types of people. And I was, away from my parents, and it was very hard. So, there's like no one to go home to, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I say this a lot, and I know it sounds sensational, but I feel like a switch turned on. I feel like I became self-aware in that time, and I really noticed how people reacted to me. And I noticed what was appropriate and what wasn't. What people really liked and what people wanted to stay away from. And so from that point on, I was very, I don't want to say that I changed, I was very gradual, but from that point on, I really noticed a lot. And I want to say like that's when I became self-aware. And it was incredibly painful. It's like one of the, I think insecurity is like poison. I think I had this crazy thought one day that, how like the cartoon version of like heaven and hell is like, heaven is, like clouds and light, and hell is like heat and fire and, red.
Yeah, that was the religion I was raised on, the cartoon version.
So we don't actually have that in Judaism, but in my mind, I realized this. I think self-awareness is both. If you don't know who you are and then you discover it, even like, I'm not a criminal or anything, but it's very hard to see what you're really like. It's painful. But if you're constantly self-aware and it's, always something that you work on, then it's like freedom, right? Like you have all the power, like you know who you are.
Yeah.
For good or bad. I am very self-aware right now that I might sound really conceited and like totally like oblivious. I'm sure there are things that I've said here that people are like, is she for real? But
No, they're not. Don't you worry.
but but so from that point on, I one of the things I really wanted validation on was that I was right, that I was seeing things as clearly as you can possibly see. And my therapist did say that to me like a few months ago. She's like, the way you're talking, she talks about wise mind a lot.
Hmm.
So she's like, I hear you and you're speaking in wise mind, and I can tell that you're self-aware. You know, you seem like in a good place. Because I just told you that I got a job, but in January I was let go, and that was hard because it's not the first time I was let go. My personality is difficult for people at work. They have a hard time with me. And I've decided, I've reflected on it. I've tried to be self-aware, and I've decided I don't think I'm doing anything wrong. I know that I have to decide when to be my full self and when not, but I don't think I'm a bad person. And I don't think that I'm super inappropriate and uncomfortable and, what's the word? Like unacceptable.
Yeah.
I think that people are uncomfortable with people who are candid and straight up and don't play games or don't put on like the polite face. Like I'm very bad at faking, at like diplomacy.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, like when people ask me how are you, I answer.
I know. Totally.
So
Like I'm having a shit day, man.
yeah,
Yeah, I've said that before.
and so I say it's because I'm an immigrant and we're very straight up, and people think that we're really angry or like really too much with our emotions, but we're just passionate and we're comfortable with it. Like I think Americans have a hard time with passion. And so I think maybe that's where that's from. But so I was struggling with that, and I was feeling like, oh, what's wrong with me again? But much less so this time. Throughout the years, I'm understanding more, and I don't feel like, oh, what's wrong with me? I feel like, okay, people aren't getting it, so I have to adapt, but there's nothing wrong with me.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm curious, like when you were in Israel, and it sounds like an amazing experience, and I'm happy you went through it. Like, I'm curious the type of feedback you were getting that sort of got you to this place, this realization. And I don't mean specifically feedback from people, although that can be included, but just reactions or, maybe any specific moments that you can call out.
Okay. Okay. So this was 2005, 2006. There's no iPhone. Maybe there was, but no one had one. We all had those like little Nokias at the time.
Yeah.
And I never had a cell phone before. I only had it because I was overseas and I needed a way to talk to my parents. And because Israel can be a dangerous place sometimes, so you want to be in contact with your family. So the reason I'm saying this is one girl had a laptop, and she would go to the local coffee shop because, again, no super available Wi-Fi everywhere. And she would download the episodes of Lost. Lost second season was out when we were there, and we watched it every week after she would buy it on iTunes, and we would watch it together in her room. And she was kind of like the because it was hers. She was kind of in charge, but she could also be a little bit of a bully. And I was the only one who stood up to her sometimes, but that meant I got kicked out of the group. And not just that, it meant no one stood up for me. And I'm not crying about this. I'm just like, this is how I do things, I'm not hesitant. So I would notice things like that, and wonder, would they have stuck up for me if I wasn't the way I was? Like sometimes I wouldn't get invited to things and I would think, why wasn't I invited? Um, I could just tell that I was very different. Like I would raise my hand in a class and ask a question, that other people would kind of be like, oh my gosh, she asked that.
Hmm.
um, the teachers wouldn't feel that way, but the students would be like, ugh, that is not how we would behave. So
Yeah.
I got, senses here and there. I just felt very different. I've always felt very different in that way. My parents are, my family, my immediate family were kind of the goody two shoes of the family. And the cousins always say like, they're different from us.
Yeah.
um, so I always felt a little different, and I could tell the different reactions. So yeah, that went down a little bit.
Well, you felt a little different because I would argue that you are a little different, and in a good way. You had mentioned the passion and sort of speaking your mind, and those are all amazing traits, and I feel more of us should have. What we're talking about here is, just sort of tailoring some of that and understanding that, like I talked about in episode whatever the fuck, with Corey Stamper.
Oh, that one.
Yeah, that one. Corey Stamper, my friend Corey Stamper, who's a lexicographer, we talked about the language of mental health and how audience and intent does matter. And, so the same applies here. Like we, even though we are aware of ourselves and we value ourselves and we do pride ourselves in speaking our mind and asking questions, because those are really good traits. It is important, and it's what you're saying is just to understand the context of where we're at.
Do you want to hear a weird epiphany I had recently?
Please.
I don't remember what TV show this was or movie or whatever it was, but someone said to a little kid, "You're old enough to understand the difference between small talk and real conversation is right." And I thought in my mind, that's my problem. I don't read the room well. Like someone says, "How are you?" And I'm like, I start explaining.
Well, I personally feel like small talk should die slow death.
Well, so okay, so this is like, this is a whole thing that I think about. Like I hope this train of thought makes sense. I think a lot about okay, several things. I'll try to make this clear. I think about, why do we put so much importance on entertainment, right?
Sure.
Everyone's like, why are we having 7 awards for actors? We should have them for teachers and for, people who really help other people. Of course, for sure. But the reason that we put so much emphasis on entertainment, be it, Hollywood, acting, movies, or games, or books, or whatever it is because we absolutely need a distraction from reality. Like I told you on Shabbat, I'm stuck in reality in my head. And it's not good. You can't be stuck in it all the time. You shouldn't run away from it. You should learn to deal with it, but you can't have it there all the time. It's not healthy. It's hard. And so I think small talk and silliness, like things without substance, are also incredibly important. I just personally hate "how are you?" Don't use those 3 words. Say hello if you mean hello. Just don't say "how are you?"
Well, you can say it, just mean it.
Right.
Because as the great Daniel Johnston says, "How are you?" I don't know if you know that reference, but Daniel Johnston is a great musician living with schizophrenia and other mental illness, and his first album is called How are you? Hi, how are you? Anyways, that was a tangent.
Cool.
I hear you. So in regards to your self-awareness, has it been a sort of tool to allow you to create more meaning for yourself?
I'm not sure how to answer that.
It's a tough one. Let me try to maybe ask myself that question.
Okay.
I would say that it's allowed me to create meaning for myself in the sense that I'm better able to notice the trends of how sort of I'm feeling and what sort of triggers those feelings. And in turn, in sort of anticipating some of that, I'm better able to sort of more fully and be more present in experiences with, my life partner or my friends or what have you. Because if I'm too anxious and I'm not sort of taking note of it or just taking notice of my emotions and understanding how that's coming or where it's coming from, then I'm not really able to have the meaningful experiences, whether it's in sort of just going out to a party or whatever. So that's an example of what I'm talking about. Does that make sense?
Yeah. In that kind of sense of understanding, recognizing what makes me act a certain way, definitely. Especially, we talked about my parents. It's taken a long time to like realize, this is like, I hate the word trigger, but like this is what really gets me upset, and I need to pay attention to that. Or the thing that I've become more and more I've forced myself to become more self-aware about is this thing with my mother where I feel like I have to let go of being right. She does this really annoying thing where she'll ask a question or she'll mention that she doesn't know something, right? And I'll tell her the answer, which I know is true.
Mm-hmm.
And not just me. She doesn't just do this to me. She does this to everyone. But her response to things like that, 99.9% of the time is, oh, I don't know, maybe. Never yes or okay. Always, I don't know, maybe. I get so angry and I'm like, no, it's not maybe, it's yes.
Yeah.
And I have to. It's so hard. It's so hard for me to be like, because it's the stupidest thing. It's like, oh, my birthday last year was on a Tuesday. I don't, whatever, right? Like it's the stupidest thing. It's like, oh, maybe it was maybe, and I'm like, no, not maybe. Like it was definitely that. Like, why are we arguing about the maybe? Like, it's this. So little things like that.
You feel like you need to be right.
I just, I feel like, yes, I definitely enjoy being right, but I think her response to that annoys me more than like pushes me more than I think on any other situation. I think
Is it because she's not really listening or invalidating your...
Yeah, I find it dismissive,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I get that.
And that's how I see it.
Sure. Yeah, I've had that experience with that answer, and it can be annoying.
I'm trying to validate to myself that I'm right, that I don't always want to be right, which is very meta. But I'm thinking of like a time where my friend and I talked about Westworld, and she was saying, and no spoilers, but she was saying like, oh, I find this season really captivating, and I was saying I actually find it really boring, and she explained why she found it captivating, which was the same exact reason why I thought it was boring, and so I didn't fight her to say like, no, but that's why it's boring. I was just like, oh, cool. You know, like I'm capable of saying we don't agree or I see both sides. You know, I'm capable of like backing off and saying, cool, like let's move on. I think the maybe just, it drives me crazy.
You like precision in your awareness and language.
Black and white. Yeah, I don't like gray.
So where are you at in therapy now? How often are you going?
So I haven't gone in a while, and I talked to her about it because there's a little bit of what's the word? Not guilt, but this kind of maybe guilt, something that makes me feel a little bad about myself that sometimes I go to her solely for validation, solely for someone to listen, an impartial person to listen to me and give me feedback on things that happen in my life. Something that changed, which was wonderful, by the way. If anyone else's therapist could do this for them, I think it would be incredible for everyone involved. My friend and I were once talking about how we go to our therapist and we just spend that hour recapping and we don't really go into things, right? And we're like, that's such a waste of an hour. This is really expensive. And we said that we wished we could email our therapist ahead of time and be like, okay, so this is what happened at work and this is what happened at home and this is what I want to talk about. And then they read it and then we're ready to dissect. So I mentioned this to her and she said, Hadas, of course you can do that. You're the boss. You're paying me. Let's do this way. So I started to do that and it's become incredible.
That's a great tip.
So
I've done that a few times and it does help.
I never thought it was a thing that you could do. I actually thought it was like disrespectful of their time, but it's right. Like, but no, they're up for it. So it's wonderful. So, I told her this. I was like, you know what? Sometimes I feel a little bad. Like I feel like I'm paying for a friend. I'm paying for an impartial friend. And that I need it, right? Like I feel a little bad about it. But she told me, she kind of made me feel okay with that. And we've decided that, and this is just how it is usually, when I need to come back, I come back. And so we don't have a set schedule anymore. When things are really stressful, I go twice a month. Because I have to pay out of pocket. My insurance doesn't cover it, and it's pretty expensive. Yeah. So I go twice a month, and she's wonderful. She'll respond to my emails when I send them. And sometimes, no, she doesn't tell me anything. She literally says like, I understand that you're really stressed about this. And she might say something that like gives me some guidance, but sometimes it's just the listening that tides me over. So that's what's currently going on. I've actually thought to write her an email about some things, and I guess I'll see when I feel like it's time for a tune-up.
Yeah, an emotional tune-up. I
think we all need it. I think it would be amazing if every kid, if there's a generation where, it's so normal to go to a therapist, because I don't see why it's still a stigma when we all have brains and none of us are perfect. So look, I don't have any mental illnesses. I've had depressive episodes, but I'm just someone who, needs some help like anyone else does. And I think we should all see a therapist every once in a while. You need to have an impartial person in your life listening to you and guiding you in some way.
Yeah, I think I agree. But the caveat is that, it's not for everyone necessarily, but I do think I'm definitely a proponent of therapy. And I think to what you said about like, early on needing this stuff, like someone posted in the Yumi Empathy Facebook community, I think it was Christina, an article about just like how in schools, in sort of your childhood, with your sort of familial unit, there really isn't any sort of emotional education. And just like there should be like good, thorough sex education, there should be like emotional education. How do we talk about this stuff? How do we recognize this stuff? Like, and the more I think we do that early on, the better off we will be, because the more self-awareness we'll have, the more understanding about our emotions and able to actually talk about them, and then the more sort of meaning and empowerment we're going to have in our lives and in our relationships.
When I was I don't even know what age this was, but I remember when I was younger, I want to say like between like, 15 to 20 something. I can't pinpoint it any more than that. I was so hurt by the way some people, like friends, were treating me at certain points. And just have, the feeling of being different was really hard at the time, that I would like cry to my parents and say, I wish like everyone in school would have to have a lesson on being nice and what it means to be like a good person. And I think that's like relative to understanding the impact of your behavior and also understanding how you feel, like what makes you feel bad, and can you understand how that might make other people feel bad. I think it would be amazing if there was more kind of education starting right from the beginning, so no one feels weird about it,
Absolutely.
that it's just an acceptable thing.
Yeah, totally. We need to normalize, we all have emotions, guys. We need to talk about them. It's important. Well, Hadas, what else do we want to say about therapy? I will just remind the listeners that I go to therapy currently. I go twice a month, every other Thursday. I have been seeing my therapist for the past 2-3 years or so. 3 years, maybe. I don't know. I'm terrible with time, but I like her a lot. She's both a great listener and someone who, like, I just need, like, a lot of times for me, it's about getting stuff out, and then I get so in my head sometimes. It's hard for me to find the perspectives that she's often giving me, and that's what the power of a good therapist can do. So I'm very grateful for therapy in my own mental health journey.
Can I ask you?
Yeah.
How when she's not, when you don't have a session or you're not emailing her or whatever, how do you get things out?
Yeah, usually heavy drug abuse. No, I'm just kidding. How do I? It's exercise for me. It's
Okay.
Yeah, running.
We actually talked about that recently.
Yeah.
With martial arts.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. That's why I looked into martial arts.
Cool.
Haven't made the leap yet, but the running kick leap. That's a term thing. That's right.
A really hard thing to do. Like a scissor kick. That's really hard.
There you go. But yeah, running. Just hiking. Even just like yesterday, I took my dog for a short walk down to the park and just sat in the grass and laid in the grass for like 10 minutes, and that was very healing for me. Yeah, those things mostly. Yeah. Cool. What about you when you aren't in therapy? What other things do you like to do to kind of heal your brain?
Okay. So if I'm like, I think initially, if I'm very emotional about something and not ready to, rationalize in any way, I'm capable of singing and I really enjoy it. And so I'll sing songs that match the mood. So like if I'm sad, I'm singing Adele songs and I'm crying with it. I'm really letting it out. And if I'm angry, then I'm singing angry songs.
I love that. And I also, I'm just going to add, sorry, but I do the same thing. When I'm in sort of like my not ragey, but just like frustrated.
You can be ragey.
Yeah. Frustrated. I listened to a lot of the old punk I listened to as a teenager and sort of scream in the car, and it's nice. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and this is we're getting really personal, so I'm totally comfortable telling you this, listeners, but like when I do this, I'm either in the kitchen or because it's really fun to sing in there, or because it's like closed and it's great acoustic, but or I'm in my room and it has to be at night and it has to be like in the dark, like pitch dark, because I want to pretend that I'm somewhere else, you know? It's like something I did when I was a kid, like, you know,
Okay.
singing and like pretending I'm like with Beyonce or whatever. But so I pretend that like if I'm singing, it's like I'm singing it to that person. And I don't know where I am. Maybe I'm like winning a Grammy, but it's like I'll show you kind of like singing, or it's like,
Yeah.
look at how sad I am. I won a Grammy singing about my sadness. Like those are that's what I think about in my head. And then it's over. The show's over. Sing a few songs and I'm done. Once I get more rational and I feel like I have to digest it, I'll write, you know, like I'll do that, like write a fake email.
Mm.
So like I'll write it all out. Definitely not put anything in the sender, but just like write everything I want. And then I feel so much better. It's also what I do when I want to shop and I don't want to spend a lot of money. I'll just like throw everything into a cart and then just close that window and I feel like I've shopped even though I didn't check out. Like those kinds of things just really make me feel better.
I like those. Those are great. Good tips.
Yeah.
Well, Hadas, I think that's a good place to start wrapping it up.
Cool.
Let's, before we, plug whatever you want to plug, let's, and you don't have to plug anything. I'm just saying that.
Sure.
Let's talk about empathy heroes. Do you want to go first or should I? It's up to you.
Why don't you go first?
Sure. So my empathy heroes this week are everyone who joined the Instagram Live last week. So my friend Tony and Tony is, for you, Hadas, Tony is my friend who's a psychotherapist who comes on every so often to sort of break down like longer, guest interviews. Just talking about how he sort of talks about PTSD with his patients, for example. Anyways, Tony and I did an Instagram Live. First time we did it for Yumi Empathy. It was a bit of an experiment, and we really didn't do much promo or anything for it, but it was great. Overall, like, over the course of, like, the almost hour, there were about 20 people who showed up, which was more than I thought would happen. So
that's really nice.
Yeah, it was nice, and people were engaging, and so I'm not going to call out everyone specifically, but I just want to, if you're listening, thanks for being there. It means a lot, and we're definitely going to try to do that again. So, Hadas, your empathy hero this week.
Okay, so this may be a little bit atypical. Okay. My empathy hero this week is the TV show. I think it's The Great British Bake Off, or just British Bake Off, and I'm going to explain why.
You don't need to explain. It's my favorite thing ever.
Okay. Let me tell you what conclusion I came to recently on it, and I wrote myself a note to mention it today, and I think this is the good point to mention it. I've been like gathering a bunch of pieces of entertainment that make me feel happy, and that I think would make other people happy. And the thread that I've realized is that it's usually very simple, it's positive. It's not very dramatically complicated, like with storylines or things. Very simple. It's like hijinks, or like a Three's Company kind of drama where everything's going to be all right and it's funny. Or it just shows everyone in a great light. And that's what I was thinking about Great British Bake Off. I was like, why do I love every contestant? I don't feel that way about any other reality show. Why do I care about every single person? And it's because the producers show everyone in a good light, and they show their vulnerability. Every one of these contestants is a little nervous that their, dessert is not going to be liked, or that something's not going to work. You see them being vulnerable. And that's the thread that I realized. All these other shows show people being vulnerable. And that's what I think makes us really love people, is when we see them being real and open. And so you can become empathetic with them because they feel fully human. They feel like you.
Yeah, that's such a good one, and I'm glad you called it out, because I feel the same way about that show. I'm always so. I love all of the guests. I mean, all of the contestants rather, and
Right?
and the hosts are so funny, and I just want to like stand and like make food puns with them. And then all the contestants are just like, after someone goes, they're like all these hugs and they're all crying. It just seems like such a warm atmosphere.
I heard a rumor. My friend, I told I was gushing to my friends about this, and one of them told me she heard a rumor that the hosts, if they notice someone is having a breakdown, they'll like surround them and start cursing and saying like product names so that the editors will have to edit it out so that the person's breakdown wouldn't be broadcast.
That is amazing. It doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, it's super sweet.
Yeah. You guys, listeners, if you're not watching this show, I think it's the Great British Baking Show or Bake Off, something like that.
That's an American name. It's on Netflix. Yeah.
It's on Netflix. Yeah, it's so delightful, and Jessica and I have been watching it, and it's just a delight. It's so good.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's the exact word.
Yeah. Well, Hadas, where can people connect with you, learn more about what you're doing? I hear that Common Room is coming back or something. I want to hear all about that.
Thanks, man. So Common Room started as this like place where I talked about pop culture very heavily and like watched everything and, really got into pop culture and lifestyle. And now I'm changing it a bit. I think with growing up, like you kind of want to have more conversations like we're having today, like going a little deeper into people and feelings and relationships and things like that. So Common Room is changing a bit. It's just going to be conversations, less of like a website that reviews things and more just conversations and realizations. And hopefully it'll be out soon. But you can catch a lot of our wonderful past episodes. Common Room, the podcast, is on many of the podcast feeds, many of the podcast apps. And the website is comrom.co, so comrom.co. I'm on all those handles at comrom.co, and I'm also at Hadsterific. Please talk to me about Bake Off and stuff and, validation tricks. I would love to talk about things like that.
Cool. Well, thanks for being on You Me Empathy, Hadas. Thanks
for having me. This was kind of like free therapy.
Well, that is a delight to hear. So thank you. And to you listeners, as I always say, I'm here, you're here, we're here together on this wayward, overwhelming, awe-inspiring pale blue dot. We have each other. It's You Me Empathy.